The first thing the German women noticed wasn't the fences. It wasn't the guards. It wasn't even the strange calm of the American camp. It was the benches. They were everywhere. Long wooden benches lined along the barracks near the mess hall, even beside the wash area. After weeks of exhausting transport, swollen feet, aching backs, and sleepless nights, the women felt a small sense of relief. "At least we can sit," one of them whispered. But that relief didn't last long. When the first group tried to rest, a sharp voice cut through the air. "No sitting. Stand up." The women froze. At first, they thought they misunderstood the English. One of them slowly sat back down, exhausted beyond caring. A guard walked closer, not shouting, not angry, just firm. "You're not allowed to sit during work hours." Confusion spread across their faces. They weren't working. They weren't being punished. They weren't even doing anything. Yet the rule was absolute. Stand. Wait. Move only when told. Hours passed. Feet burned. Knees trembled. One woman leaned against the wall, trying not to collapse. Another quietly wiped tears from her face, terrified to draw attention. Back home, even in the worst moments of the war, sitting had never been forbidden like this. One of them finally gathered the courage to ask, her voice shaking, "Why? Why can't we sit?" The guard looked at her for a long moment. Then he answered calmly, "That's the rule here," and walked away. That night, as the women lay on their bunks, whispering in the dark, a terrible question passed between them. If this is only the first rule, what comes next? The rule didn't make sense until time passed. At first, the women tried to stay still, standing straight, eyes forward, hands hidden in sleeves to keep what little warmth remained. 10 minutes passed, then 30. Their legs began to ache in a way that fear couldn't numb. Snow melted beneath their boots and refroze, turning the ground into uneven ice. Every small shift of weight felt like a mistake that might be noticed. One woman quietly bent her knees just for a second. A whistle cut the air. "Stand straight!" No shouting, no threats, just certainty. They learned quickly that the rule wasn't about discipline, it was about endurance. Hours later, some of them no longer felt their feet. One whispered that she couldn't tell if she was standing or floating. Another stared at the unused bench just a few meters away, her eyes filling with tears, not from pain but from disbelief. Back in Europe, punishment had always been loud, brutal, obvious. Here, it was silent. No one hit them, no one screamed. The Americans simply watched the clock. When one woman finally collapsed to her knees, 2 guards moved instantly. Not harshly, not angrily. They helped her up, brushed snow from her coat, and placed her back in line. "You can stand," one of them said calmly. "You just need time." That sentence spread fear faster than any threat. Time for what? That night, their legs shook uncontrollably as they lay on their bunks. Some cried quietly. Others stared at the ceiling, replaying the same thought over and over. This camp isn't trying to break us fast, it's trying to change us. And by morning, they would learn the real reason the rule existed. On the third morning, the women expected the same routine. Line up, stand, wait. But instead of silence, a different order came. "Follow me." They were led past the familiar barracks deeper into the camp toward a small medical building. The smell of disinfectant hung in the cold air. That alone made several of them tense. Inside, an American officer stood with a clipboard. His voice was calm, almost careful. "You're not being punished," he said slowly, as if choosing every word. "And you're not being tested." No one believed him. He continued anyway. "When you arrived, many of you were severely weakened. Long transport, poor nutrition, cold exposure." He paused, then said the part none of them expected. "If you sit for long periods in your condition, blood pools in the legs. People faint. People don't get back up." The women exchanged confused looks. One of them spoke quietly. "So, standing keeps us safe?" The officer nodded. "In your current state, yes." The room went silent. Suddenly, the rule felt heavier, but different. They weren't being denied rest. They were being retrained to survive. The officer pointed to a chart on the wall showing circulation in the human body. Several women leaned closer, surprised that anyone was explaining anything at all. "We increase standing time slowly," he continued. "Short movement, controlled posture. If someone collapses, we help them immediately." A bitter laugh escaped one woman before she could stop herself. You could have told us. The officer met her eyes. In many camps, explanations are ignored. Here, results matter more than comfort. That afternoon, when they were lined up again, something had changed. The pain was still there. The cold hadn't softened. But fear had shifted into something else, understanding. And yet, as one woman whispered to another, "If this rule is meant to help us, what are the next ones for?" Once they knew the reason, the rule felt different, but not easier. Standing was no longer just standing. Every movement became intentional. Every breath counted. The guards adjusted the routine. Short walks replaced long, frozen stillness. They were allowed to lean, never sit, against the walls of the barracks during pauses. The women noticed these changes immediately. Someone was watching carefully. A woman who had collapsed days earlier was now placed at the front of the line. Not as punishment, but so guards could see her face at all times. When her knees began to shake, a hand appeared at her elbow, steady but restrained. No words, just support. Slowly, strength returned in ways they hadn't expected. Feet stopped going numb so quickly. Blood returned to faces that had been gray only days before. Pain still came, but it came later. At night, conversations changed. They no longer whispered only about fear. They spoke about time, about what they could endure tomorrow that they couldn't yesterday. One woman admitted something she hadn't said out loud before. "If they wanted to break us," she said, "they wouldn't bother fixing us." That thought spread quietly, yet trust did not come easily. Every improvement carried suspicion. Every small kindness felt like it might disappear without warning. The women watched the guards closely, searching for cracks, raised voices, careless cruelty, but none came. Instead, new instructions were posted the next morning. Clear, written, translated, and at the bottom, a single sentence that made them uneasy all over again. "This rule will change." No date, no explanation. As they stood reading it, one woman whispered the question none of them wanted answered. If standing was only the beginning, what will they make us do next? The change came without ceremony. One cold morning, the line formed as usual. Boots in the snow, breath hanging in the air. The women waited for the familiar order. Instead, a guard spoke quietly. "You may sit." No one moved. The benches had been there from the beginning. Too close, too tempting. And yet, after weeks of standing, the word felt dangerous, as if sitting might still be a mistake. "You're allowed," the guard repeated. "Slowly." One woman lowered herself first, carefully, testing her weight. When nothing happened, others followed. Hands shaking, knees stiff, eyes fixed on the guards. No whistles, no corrections. Some of them cried the moment they sat down. Not from pain, but from relief they hadn't allowed themselves to feel. Later, they learned the reason. Their bodies were stronger now. Circulation had improved. The risk had passed. That night, as they rested for the first time without fear, one woman said softly, "They didn't take sitting away from us. They gave it back." And in that moment, they understood something none of them would ever forget. This camp wasn't built to destroy them. It was built to keep them alive.